Hey guys, in this chapter we're going to make this horrible looking interface look a lot better. So let's get into it. What we want to do is open up our style sheet. Okay, now we have quite a bit to do here. So I want to zero out the margin and the padding. Some browsers, especially older ones, will include different values when it comes to padding and margin. So we just want to zero that out, and we can use this asterisk, and that just represents every element. Okay, so every element on the page. Set that to 0, 0, and we're also going to say border 0, okay, or border none, and outline none. Okay, so that'll take away the border from tables, from anything. Alright, so next is the body. Alright, so for the font, I'm just gonna give it a font family of Arial. Font size will be 13 pixels, and we'll give it a line height of 1.5 m. The color of the text will be white. Now, as I said in the last chapter, the background here is not an image, it's actually CSS3 gradient. Alright, so I'm going to paste in some CSS here. Alright, so basically I'm setting the background to a static color for older browsers that don't have this CSS3 gradient capability. Alright, now, and then these lines here, we're just setting different gradients for different types of browsers. Mozilla, WebKit for Safari, and of course just the linear gradient as well. Alright, and we're starting with this color, which is basically a purplish pinkish color, and going into a bluish grayish color. Alright, so that's what this whole block of code does, is creates that background. So let's save it and make sure it displays. Alright, there we go. Alright, so now we have the gradient background. I think that's it for body. The next thing I want to do is, if you remember, we have that clear fix class, and that's just going to clear any floats that we have. So we're just going to set this clear to both, and that's it. Alright, so next we'll do the container. And usually when I'm building websites or apps, I'll have a container class, and I'll put that wherever I want content to be placed in the middle at a fixed or percentage width. But with this application, we basically everything is in the container, so we're only going to have one container, so that's why I'm giving it an ID instead of a class. No big deal, just wanted to throw that out there. Alright, so the container, the width is going to be 330 pixels. We're going to set a minimum height on it, and that's going to be 400 pixels. And the background is going to be a dark gray. We want to set overflow to auto. As far as a margin, we're going to give this container a margin of 20 pixels on the top and bottom, and we want to set the left and right to auto so that it's placed in the middle of the browser. We're going to make rounded corners. Okay, so we can use the CSS3 border radius property, and I'm going to set that to 10 pixels. And then finally we're going to have a box shadow, kind of give it that drop shadow look. So we'll say 0, 10 pixels, 8 pixels, negative 8 pixels, and we're going to give it that dark gray. So that should do it for the container. Let's check that out. Alright, so you can see it's placed in the middle. We have our rounded corners, drop shadow, looks good. Now you can see that we do have content missing. Basically we're going to insert that using jQuery. So you know what, right now let's just put some static content so we can just see what it's going to look like. Alright, so for the cover, let's go to the HTML and actually just give this a source. And we want images, covers, cover1.jpg. Okay, so that'll just put the static image in there for us. Okay, so let's style this. Obviously that's not what we want. We need to change the size and some other things. So let's give a style to our audio image div. Okay, so I want to position it relative. The overflow is going to be hidden. We're actually not going to show the entire image because it's just too big. And the dimensions just don't work, so we're going to hide part of it. We're going to give it a height of 200 pixels and margin bottom 15 pixels. Alright, so you can see that now only 200 pixels is showing, and since we put the overflow to hidden, then we can't see it. There's no scroll bars, so it's just nice and it's just sits in there. Alright, I do want the actual image to be smaller, so what I'm going to do is set it to 100%, and basically it's going to be set to the width of this div that it's contained in. Okay, so we want the actual image, which has a class of cover. So under here, audio image, and then we want that cover class, and I'm going to set that to 100%, and actually that's all we need. Alright, so now we have our cover. Next, let's do the audio info. Now you can see we don't have it here because it's going to be generated, but again, for now, let's just put some static content there. Okay, so that is right here. Okay, so it's the artist, and I'll just put in the name of a song, the first one, paper cut. Okay, so we want to add a little style to that. We get the audio info div, and basically I just want to align the text to the center. Whoop. And then the artist, I want to make the artist title bold. So I'm going to say audio info dot artist. Alright, so that's good. Okay. Now what we want to do is the volume. Okay, so let's change this to look like this. So it's an input with the ID of volume. Alright, so let's set the width to 95%, basically across the whole thing. I'm going to put a little bit of margin on the left to push it to the center, which will be just 2%. Now we want to set the WebKit appearance to none. This is basically going to remove any of the operating system styles that is applied to this element. All right, so WebKit appearance, can't spell, and we just want to set this to none and give it a little important. Okay, background is going to be light gray, and we just want a height of 1 pixel. Okay, so that basically just be the line for the volume, and let's get it a margin bottom of 20 pixels. Alright, so let's see what that does. That gives us this line. Now we want to change this little bar to this this ball, which is just basically just an image that we have, which is right here. Okay, so it's called knob.png. Now to style that, we're going to say input volume, and we want to do WebKit slider thumb. That allows us to style that little bar. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take away the appearance, and we just need to set the background to a URL, no repeat. Okay, and the URL is going to be images/knob.png, and let's give that a height of the image, which is 12 pixels, and a width of 12 pixels. Okay, so that should do it. Alright, so there's our volume. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is our buttons, and you can see that we don't have, they're not showing, and that's because our buttons do not have a value. Alright, so what we need to do is replace our buttons with an image, or we'll actually give it a background image. And you can see we have our buttons here: play, pause, and stop. We also have next and previous. Okay, so first we'll do the actual buttons div, which holds all of them. Alright, and we're going to set this to 90%, and we want it displayed as a block. And as far as so margin, top and bottom will be 15 pixels, sides will be auto, and we're going to give it a margin left of 23 pixels. This is just going to push them into the center, and overflow auto. Alright, so now let's do the first button, which we'll do the play button first. I want to do the play, pause, stop buttons, and then we'll do the arrows. Alright, so we're going to say button with the ID of play. Width is going to be 70 pixels. Same with the height. And background. I believe that it's play.png. Let me just double check. Yeah. Alright, so that'll give us the button. It's going to float to the left, and I'm going to give it margin left of -2 pixels just to position it where we want it. Alright, so let's make sure that that shows up, which it doesn't. Oh, this needs to be images, not image. Alright, so there's our play button. Now I'm just going to copy this. And next we'll do the pause button. Now initially with the final design we want the pause button to be hidden when the page loads, because we only want it shown when the song's playing. So it's going to show now and look a little weird, but later on we're going to hide it using jQuery. Okay, so all we need to do here is basically change the name of the image. Alright, so now let's do the stop. And this one, we want to just change this to -3 pixels. Alright, so let's try that. Okay, so there's our buttons. Now we'll do the previous and the next arrows. Again, it's going to look a little messed up because the pause button is going to be shown. Actually, you know what? Let's hide it for now. Okay, and next we'll do the previous. Okay, now the arrows we're going to give a margin top. We want to push them down a little, so we're going to give a margin top of 15 pixels. Okay, now we'll do the next. Next, now we want to float this right. Okay. Alright, so there's our buttons. This stop button should actually be, margin left should be 3, not -3. There we go. Alright, so now let's do the tracker, which will be the progress bar and the time. Okay, so the progress bar is basically going to be just the container with the blank, with the empty progress bar image. Actually, you know, let me change this to, I want to stay consistent, and we've been using dashes in our class names as opposed to camel case. So I'm just going to change that. Alright, so width 80%, margin left 2%, margin bottom 20 pixels, margin top will be 9 pixels, height 10 pixels, and then we want our background. Images, and it's called progress bg.png, and we want to float it to the left. Alright, so there's our progress bar. Now for the actual progress, which isn't going to be displayed, well, it actually will be displayed now, but of course we're going to, when we add the JavaScript, we're going to have it increase as the duration goes on. So progress And basically we want our image. The image is going to be progress.png. We're going to have it the same height, and we want this to be displayed as an inline block. Alright, so that's not showing now, but it will later on. Okay, so duration, which is the time, we're going to position that absolute, 0 from the top, and 10 pixels from the right. Give it some padding, 4 pixels top and bottom, 8 pixels right and left, and a background of black. Also, we want it to have rounded corners, so border radius, and we'll do 5 pixels. Okay, now we don't have the time there, so I'm going to just put a static time in, right in the duration span. And these are going to be removed in the next, when we do the JavaScript, because we don't want just static text. We want the actual time to be inserted into this element. Okay, so we're basically just doing this for show, just so we can make sure that it looks good. Okay, so that's not showing. And I think it's because we forgot a D in our padding. Okay, still not. Duration. Alright, so it looks like it's showing way up here in the corner. That's because we want our tracker element to be relative. The tracker is this whole area, and we didn't add any styling for that yet, so we need to do that. I'm going to put that in above the progress bar div. Okay, so of course we want to position this relative, and I'm going to give it a width of 100%, and that should contain that duration. Alright, so there we go. Alright, now the last thing we need to style is the playlist, so we just want to kind of give it some padding and margin. We want to highlight, we want to create an active class to highlight the song that's playing. So let's do that. And we're going to say playlist. We want to make sure there's no bullets, so we want to just set the list style to none. And then the li, we want to make the cursor into a pointer when it's hovered over it. And then I'm just going to give it a 5 pixels of margin. Alright, now we want to create an active class, so let me copy this, and we want to say li.active, and for the active we're going to make it bold. We're going to give it some padding, 3 pixels, and background will be kind of a dark gray. Okay, so let's reload. Now we don't have an active class, so let's just manually add that for now to make sure it's working. So I'm just going to give this a class of active. Alright, so our application user interface is complete. Now we just have to create the JavaScript to power it.